infrastructure is tremendously important. I mean, you can have the minerals, you can have the wool or meat, but you've got to get it out of the farm or out of the mine. You've got to get it onto the transport system that takes it to the coast, and then you've got to get it on the ships. And in all those areas, infrastructure is quite critical. Well, we've had a very puzzling experience over this decade. Export growth over the last 5 years of the commodity boom has been much less than it was in the previous 20 years. And infrastructure constraints have got a lot to do with that failure to increase export growth. Well, in all the 2 decades of the 80s and the 90s, our export volume growth was running on average around about 7%. And for the last 6 years, it's been running on average about 3%. Well, I think that states the case pretty plainly. We've run into some very considerable constraints which weren't evident in the previous 20 years. Well, I think we need some kind of authority to identify trends in demand, to identify where we're going to run into constraints, what the capacity of our infrastructure is, and how those needs ought to be met, whether by state or Commonwealth government intervention, whether by private sector intervention, how they should be paid for by state or Commonwealth governments or by private sector initiatives. It needs to take a view on where the problems are going to occur, and to my mind, the only authority that's capable of doing that nationally is the Commonwealth. Well, I think the aim of the session that I chair should be for delegates to share their experience of infrastructure constraints, where there are problems, how they might be remedied, what problems they foresee arising in the future. I think that would be an important takeaway from my session and from the conference as a whole. If we can come out of it with a better idea of where we're going in infrastructure and what the needs are, the time will have been well spent.